Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to How I Built a Profitable Client Accounting Services Practice. My name is Bill Sheridan, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer with the Maryland Association of CPAs and the Business Learning Institute. We're very excited to bring you this sponsored webinar. It's being brought to you today by AccountantsWorld. Since 2000, AccountantsWorld has used the power of the cloud to raise the relevance of accountants. AccountantsWorld solutions are developed for and sold exclusively to accounting professionals, and AccountantsWorld is the premier provider for the Maryland Association of CPAs and the Business Learning Institute. You can learn more at AccountantsWorld.com. Now, on with the webinar, Client Accounting Services, or CAS. This is the #1 new revenue segment for CPA firms. A majority of top 100 firms are now offering CAS to their clients. Our instructor today is Jim Sosinski. He has successfully created and grown his CAS practice. In this webinar, Jim will share the processes that he has implemented for CAS, the technologies his firm uses, how he convinces clients about the greater value he can deliver to them via CAS, and much more. Jim is a partner of the Koenig Group, CPAs and Planners. He is a 1988 graduate of Rutgers University, licensed by the state of New Jersey as a certified public accountant in 1989, and he brings over 25 years experience of small business administration and accounting to By the Book, which is now a division of the Koenig Group. His vision is to bring to small businesses a one-stop source for all of their payroll, tax, and bookkeeping needs. He's positioned By the Book to be larger than a sole practitioner to provide clients with the stability of having a company providing for them, but smaller than a large firm to whom you're just a client number. So, Jim, welcome. Take it away.
Bill, thank you very much. And I want to thank the Maryland Association for inviting me to speak today, as well as Dr. Chandra Bansali, the founder of AccountantsWorld as well. Now, as I begin, everyone on this webinar, let me let you know, I am not a professional speaker. I do not give seminars or webinars for a living. Like you, I'm a practicing accountant. I sit at my desk every day, I roll up my sleeves, I process work. You know, I have staff that I supervise, but I get my hands dirty. I'm in the mix of it, I work. This webinar is not scripted for me. I'm pretty much just speaking on the bullet points as they come. So when you hear me, once in a while I may stumble over a word because, again, I'm creating the dialogue as we're going along. And what I'm going to be covering today, I want to let you know, is I'm really sharing with you what I have found in my career, in my practice that has worked. You know, these are my own thoughts, opinions, experiences. I think many of you will be able to relate, you know, with what I have to say, because it's the type of clients we have, the work we do is all very similar. And I think I'm going to be possibly hitting some highlight points and hot points that you've experienced in your own firms. A little bit more about myself, my background. You know, Bill gave you a good intro, but 2018 was my 33rd tax season. You know, I think we all, you know, basically build our careers and how long we've been in it by how many tax seasons we have lived through. My practice is located in New Jersey. You know, we're about 30, 40 minutes outside of Manhattan, so it's central New Jersey. I'm married, 5 children, one son who's also just graduated Rutgers following in my footsteps. I counseled him about that, and he's determined to still do it, even against my advice sometimes. Our firm does probably about 2,000 1040 clients, 500 commercial trust estate clients, but my niche really is small businesses that are large enough to have a bookkeeping, accounting, payroll, basically compliance issues, all right, but are too small to hire dedicated staff. You know, therefore, all of these responsibilities falls on the owner, his or her spouse, but this is the niche is what I believe opens the door to CAS, or Client Accounting Services. So when I started back in 1985, it was a family-run practice. Myself, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was our bookkeeper. It was 3 of us. After doing that for about 5 years, I realized, you know, there's a lot of opportunity here. But that's where I learned back in those early days where, you know, we didn't just sit in the office and wait for people to do us. We were mobile accountants. We went to the clients. We did work for them. We processed their work on almost a live, you know, semi-live basis. But then after 5 years, I'm like, there's got to be better ways of doing this. So 2001 to 2005, I really focused on growing the firm, getting more clients. But one of the hiccups that I was finding is, well, how do you differentiate yourself from all the other CPA firms out there? You know, you have a little different logo, your mission statement all sounds the same. That's when I created a company called By the Book. By the Book, your outsourced payroll and bookkeeping solution. Because I found that many small businesses, there was a hurdle. Oh, you're a CPA firm. You're too big and expensive for me. And they wouldn't even want to talk to me. I couldn't even get through the door. But when I introduced this, oh, I'm from By the Book, another small business, all of a sudden their doors were open. They wanted to listen. So we just created a sub-brand of our accounting firm. Instead of calling it we still had the accounting firm, but this was our bookkeeping and payroll outsource provider. And all of a sudden, people became much more receptive to that. That went on for many, many years. And I built a very strong network in the industry. And in 2015, I actually received an offer to merge my firm. The gentleman I merged with had 2 CPAs. His practice was basically double the size of mine. And it evolved out of the concept that every year after tax season, we call each other and debrief. And part of it would be he'd say, Jim, I can't understand how you get as many returns done as you do with the level of staff you have. And that went on for 2 or 3 years. And finally, after a very trying tax season, said, listen, we really have to sit down and talk. And in beginning 1/1/17, we merged a practice. But that's how my practice evolved, from actually learning to do things manually with my father-in-law, working and bringing it to the use of technology today to streamline that. My approach overall, in terms of a summary, delivering our clients a solution. All right, delivering them, not just being a service provider, solving their problems. So, real quick agenda today. I already talked about my background and the history of my practice. We're going to talk about the key challenges I faced that made me realize there has to be a better way out there. I'm going to review what I consider to be the common workflow calendar of a practicing CPA. We're going to go into seizing the opportunity, and then describing and sharing with you, how do I work? What are the tools I use? Moving on to, how do I sell it? And what I consider a very important part of things, flat fee billing. And then we'll open it up for questions. And I know you have the ability to type in questions along the way, so please feel free to, because Bill, the moderator, he'll be receiving them and can, pause me if he gets a question that comes up, during the presentation. So moving
Absolutely.
right on.
And I was just going to jump in there real quick, Jim. You mentioned questions. I actually have a question for you to start off
please,
with. So,
go ahead.
My question simply is this. I mean, let's start by defining our terms. Client accounting services. It's been called a lot of different things by a lot of different people. I've heard business process outsourcing. I've heard finance and accounting outsourcing, CFO advisory services. You're going with client accounting services. So how do you define that?
All right. Very good question, Bill. Thank you. I consider the first 2 terms you used, business process outsourcing, finance and accounting outsourcing. It really, I best compare those 2 terminologies to back in the days when computers first came out, and everybody really just wanted to take their paper product. This is how we did it by paper, and now we'll do it the exact same way on a computer. I mean, many people think back to those days. In my opinion, it was horrible. I mean, you're supposed to be using computers to, shorten the process, make things more efficient, not just taking it from handwriting to the screen. And that's really what the first 2 are doing. They're basically jumping in saying, well, we'll just replace your people with our people, but do things exactly the way you were doing them, in that basis. Where accounting outsourcing, I see it two prongs to it. First, it's a solution. We're coming and providing, listen, this is how we will do it. And you're providing them a program. And number 2 is also the timing of it. Client accounting services, our goal is to be, I'll call it, as live as possible. All right? We're trying to save clients money by not having all of this in-house staff, but getting work to them in a timely basis so that within several days after the close of the month, a client has accurate, reliable data to work on. So really, I see CAS as the combination of those 2, providing a solution, a program, along with the proper timing, which then leads into that 4th term you said, CFO advisory services. I think a lot of times accountants spend so much time processing the work, and so historically, that we're working on months and months ago that you can't provide any like lifetime guidance. We find ourselves in the end of the tax year. It's October, November, and people are looking for tax projections. Well, first we're realizing, geez, your books are only done through, April, May, June. So first we got to either rush and bring them up to current, or at least guess what they are to current, and then project to the end of the year, which is like 2 steps. Wouldn't our jobs be so much easier if we come to October, November, and our books are up to date through September, October? All we then have to do is project to the end of the year. So by doing a client accounting services, I think frees up the time for us to then add to that extra level, which is the CFO advisory service.
Perfect. Well, thanks for clarifying all that. On with some of the challenges. What were some of the challenges you ran into as you built this?
The challenges I faced, and I'm sure we all face this, is that technology. It's something that, since probably the late 80s when it first started, mid to late 80s, is something we had to learn to adopt and live with. Except, we're letting clients decide what technologies to use. Many of them are using antiquated software, which leads to, client bookkeeping errors. People ask me all the time, Jim, what do you say is the difference between accounting and bookkeeping? And I joke and I say, well, generally, accounting is the correction of bookkeeping errors. And, people go on and laugh, but that's the truth. And going on later when I talk about the sales pitch, one of them is that, wouldn't you rather pay our firm, and I'll call it a hybrid rate, accounting, bookkeeping, combined rate, which is lower, or basically saying paying us at a bookkeeping rate than paying us later much higher rates to correct all these errors. Other things we dealt with, cumbersome file transfers. But in general, by challenges, I mean, what's costing me time? What's causing me aggravation? Basically what pains me. It's funny because a dear friend of mine, just a side story, went, after college, he went to work for his family insurance business. He was a young, ambitious guy, and he wanted to conquer the world. He wanted to sell any kind of insurance possible. Whenever there's an opportunity for a sale, he jumped all over it. And the father one time, a couple months in, sat him down and explained to him. He said, son, if there's anything that is too difficult, why are we doing it? And those are words that always stuck with me, and it's something I apply to our own field, is we want to be everything to everybody. And that's something that we have to overcome in this. But back to technology, we deal with multiple vendor packages, multiple versions of vendor packages. Depending on which one you're using, you have to go back in and make sure the client didn't change any of the data since the last time you touched it and reconciled and processed it. Depending on, again, the system, file transfers. Them either sending you an accountant's copy or a backup copy. I mean, growing up, I had 2 favorite cartoons, the Flintstones and the Jetsons. And we as accountants have to stop acting like the Flintstones and start acting like the Jetsons and be in the current modern age. Letting the client dictate how often they bring you the work, whenever they get to it. Also standardization, every client having a different chart of accounts. That means every time me or a staff person goes into a different client under this older model, we have to almost relearn the client. You're spending 15, 20 minutes. Okay, what do I do? How do I do it? Where is their chart of accounts? So, it's tough to have to do that on a month-to-month basis because all of this ends up taking time, and time equals money. It's as simple as that. So as a result, one thing that I faced is we ended up with just way too many extensions because of, having to always play catch-up in this work. So I've created what, I consider what I call my former workflow calendar, which I think for many people is a pretty common workflow calendar. You look at the greens, which are nice, pretty easy coasting times. The yellow, which is all right, we're picking up the pace. Orange, which is, we're running fast. And then red is that all-out sprint. And you look at the change throughout the year. And again, I say this is what I consider my old work cycle looked like, which I believe many still have it, where middle of February, personal tax seasons and year-end clients are starting to bring their work in. So that's when everything starts getting very, very, very busy, right through April 15th. Even for another month after that, you're still working on getting returns that were almost done, but they're on extension. Let's get them out the door. You have not-for-profits we're working on. So finally, you know, now, the end of May, mid to end of May, we're finally in a little bit of a, all right, let's just exhale and breathe a little bit. Let's get over tax season. But next thing you know, July and August come around, it's yellow again. It's the end of the second quarter. There's things that we have to get caught up on, and the pace picks up again. Well, summer's over, but now we find ourselves, well, September 15th is right around the corner, and all those corporate and partnership extensions, they got to get done. You know, and that quickly leads into the personal extension time. So really, the only time that's really calm and quiet is the very, very end of the year, November, December, when we would love to be doing planning for our clients and better projections, but, you know, you're still playing catch-up. I mean, that's why seminars are so popular in that, you know, all the software packages, they have their users conferences and a lot of things all in November, because they realize that's really the first time of the year that you're able to really slow down, and that was it. So moving on, let's talk about the changes I've made. Now, you heard me say before where we were talking about doing what every client wanted. And I find that I myself was guilty of, earlier on in my career, not following my own advice. And that was, I tell a client, listen, if you made the best pizza in town, sell pizza. Don't have the menu boards of chicken, veal, fish, sandwiches, subs, wraps, salads, and onward. Sell pizza. Find what you do and do that the best. And finally, I think I started learning that myself, and instead of trying to be everything to everybody, learning to say no to every client that knocked on the door, and really defining what am I best at. And that's where I started. That was one of my changes that I had to do, was defining what am I best at. What do I enjoy doing? You know, what did I like to do? What do I think that I can provide to the client? So I went on a search. I was not happy with the software package I was using. It didn't allow for proper collaboration. So that was very important to me. Going in and finding a system that allowed me to be proactive versus reactive. All right, that was the key in doing so. And as you can see by the sponsor, and that is why I'm speaking to you today, is because I am an AccountantsWorld user. I'm one of their power users. I think I'm one of the, have the top amount of clients in their system. And I went out searching because the platform I was on, and I'm not going to mention what it was, it just wasn't fulfilling the needs. There was holes, there was gaps. It just wasn't providing the level of service that I wanted to provide the clients. It wasn't providing that collaboration. So I learned to say no. I realized that old adage that 20% of your clients do create 80% of my headaches. That is absolutely true. And I went in and said, I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I went in and said, accepting work no less than once a month. My minimum engagement is monthly, and then slower, maybe twice a month, weekly. This, other than a very small, say, realty partnership that, they give me the summary at the end of the year of the rent and expenses, we're not doing a whole year's write-up at once. We're not letting the client run their own QuickBooks all year and then dump the file on us and expect to have us cleaned up and reconciled and everything filed timely. It's just not going to happen. All right? I really created what I consider a streamlined process. Stop letting the clients dictate the engagement. All right? How did I do this? I listen to my clients. I listen what pains them. I identify and listen what are their problems. And then I tell them, listen, I can help. And it's getting them to change their mindset of that we're not just providing them a function or a service. We're providing that solution. We're providing them a package of solutions. And that's that mindset we're going into, and we'll talk about later, changing the way they think. Also, providing live payroll services. In my opinion, going in and having clients use 20 different payroll companies, data whose reports and everything is all different formats, and having that properly integrated into the accounting system so we can do the proper bank recs, it's just very, very time-consuming and crazy because you're dealing with so many different platforms. So I truly believe processing your live payroll not only provides me a a greater profit center, a new profit center, which creates greater profits. It also allows us to touch the client weekly or biweekly. When you start touching and having these constant contact with these clients, they learn to value you so much more. You're part of their team, not just, oh, yeah, that's my accountant. I see him once or twice a year. I will go into a whole slide later on the benefits of flat fee billing, why I do it, how I implement it, what benefits I'm getting about it, getting off of it. So, but basically, I'm creating a streamlined and documented process. This is how we do it. Not just, oh, yeah, I need you to do this. I'm explaining to clients systematically, this is how we do it, this is how we go through. In general, the goal is creating efficiencies because we're talking about how to create a more profitable business and through CAS services, but CAS is the ability to offer new types of services to the clients, but one of the goals is doing it more efficiently so that we're spending less time on it and becoming more profitable. Efficiency equals profit. So, the key to being able to provide this level of service is the right technology. I had to pick the right system and use it to create, this systematic process that I'm talking about. So let me show you. After I implemented this new theory, this new technology, this new process, let me show you what my actual work calendar looks like today. So you see the one on the left where we started. The one on the right is basically what I'm doing now. And what we got at is that one fixed item in our life, tax season, that April 15th deadline, that is the one immovable object that we cannot change. There's so many other things in our lives, in our offices, in our practice, I believe we can change. We have control over them, somewhat control. But that April 15th we do not. So because of that, and then the time right before that, the March to February, the personal tax season, that we are all subject to when are our clients showing up, the 1040 clients. When are they getting their work? When are they calling for appointments? Myself, I think this was one of our, when I say worst years ever, for clients coming in later and later. I mean, one older couple retired. They came in March 24th. And I was, and during the year I think about, wow, I haven't seen so-and-so yet. And they came in, I look in the file, their return was done last year, February 18th. And I said, Chuck and Connie, why is everything all right? Well, we just didn't get around to it. Very blasé, no care, not realizing that unlike other professions, doctors, attorneys, oh, I'm booked up this week, come in next week. Eventually we get to, there is no next week. There is no tomorrow because of that April 15th deadline. So by implementing the theory of this monthly work, this monthly engagement with the clients. Now, again, we're going to talk later about the different spread of this, but even if you're doing solely historic write-up for your clients, monthly processing so that the following month the books are reconciled and closed. Build 1 month on the other. I mean, even in general, if you're doing quarterly work and you're in the end of July, you're doing the client's April, May, June's work, find something wrong or questions in April. That's 4 months ago. You contact the client, and they'll be like, I'll get back to you. Now, if you contact the client the following month saying, hey, Bill, last month I see these 3 transactions, right off the top of their head, they're going to be able to answer them. That's efficiency. All right, the longer the time goes, at least I find in my own practice, and I hope some of you may disagree with me, and I can't always explain it, that if you process a client on a monthly basis, it takes me 30 minutes, hypothetically. Now, if I did that same client 3 months consecutively doing a quarter, you would think, all right, Jim, this should take you 90 minutes. It doesn't for some reason. It takes me like 2 hours. It takes me not an hour and a half. It takes me 240 minutes. The larger chunks of work when you're processing seem to take me longer times to process. The smaller the pieces. I mean, another sales pitch I do to my clients is that your bookkeeping work, what we're doing here, is like your laundry. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes doing their laundry. And if you came home every day and took off your clothes from the day and throw them in a corner, by the end of the weekend, you're going to have this pile growling at you that now you're going to take several hours to have to conquer and beat. Where if you did it, I did some, wash Monday nights, then dry to Tuesday, and some again on Wednesday, you're able to get it done. So the calendar on the right, by doing the work monthly, when January comes, all I'm doing is really reconcile and closing the month of December with some year-end adjustments. Got to add depreciation, inventory, year-end entries, tying some things out. I'm ready to go to tax. We have probably 70 to 80% of our commercial returns done by the end of February. And that is all before tax season, 1040 tax season, really accelerates. That's why it's an orange in color for me, because we're processing work. You're getting 1099s done. That's done very early in January, but we're hitting the ground right into entity returns, which for all of our pass-through entities, you need that to complete the personals as well. So it just is a very logical workflow. But then it allows me to have a lot more green in my life. Sure, September 15th, October 15th, there is an uptick because you're going to have some clients on extension just because they're missing K-1s, they're missing information. But however, I can tell you, like in October 2015, I was on a cruise in mid-October for the entire week. The last 2 years, I was playing in golf tournaments the same week. It's just, I made the conscious decision by getting this commercial work done, which I think we have the control over, the timing of it. I've greatly reduced my stress, increased my time for vacation, family, whatever's important to me. I took back control of my clients. I took back control of my accounting firm. I didn't let the firm run my life anymore. I'm now running the firm and living my life. So, as I think these old weight loss commercials used to say, stop the insanity. We need to live the life we want to live. Why do we get in this profession? Is to provide for our families and loved ones, give us a profession, but we can't let that profession run us. And that's why I want to share with you seizing the opportunity that presents it today in our industry. But to seize it, you need to be equipped to do so. That is most importantly. So, old model, what I call the old model. People would have an in-house bookkeeper. Either that or the husband or wife of the owner themselves would be doing it. They have a third-party payroll processor. They have a third-party accountant who cleans stuff up annually. A very inefficient, not profitable, and actually chaotic schedule. And luckily, for example, just this past year, a good friend of mine, our daughters went to school together from preschool right through high school. He retired from a big job at Deutsche Bank in New York City. Mid to late 50s, not done with his life, always a fitness fanatic. He buys into a gym in our area. I congratulate him, wish him the best. And so he goes through the first 7-8 months, through the first year end. And this is exactly the model he has. He had an in-house bookkeeper. He had a payroll company. He had all of these people working for him. And it was very inefficient. Every time he went to call one person, oh, that's not me, that's somebody else. Oh, that's not me. And he got, it wasn't running. He knew my concept of buy the book, the outsource model. And he just calls me off the gym, off the cuff, and, I talk. I was surprised to hear from him. And he says, I always know what you've done, but tell me more about your buy the book. And what I'm doing today, laid it out to him, explained it to him. He says, you know what, I want to give it a try. And not only did, after the first year, that I get the most, complimentary email, even a phone call, because, when you go to price things out in the beginning, it's not always easy. You have to determine the volume of the work you're going to do. And I let them know that, listen, I'm basing this on this projected volume. If the volume is there or higher, we're going to have to raise our rates. He called me after a year and said, Jim, I'm extremely pleased with your work, but it's a year. I want you to reevaluate your rates. I want to make sure you're getting paid for the work you're doing. I think I raised him $100 a month, but he was paying $18,000, $20,000 in fees in the old model. My quote was just under $12,000 for the first year. And can I tell you that was an extremely profitable model? Extremely profitable. Because under this new model, client accounting services, as I answered Bill's question earlier, there's two components to this. First of all, you are opening yourselves to brand new services you're offering. We're doing bill pay, AR and accounts payable management. As I mentioned, live payroll. I mean, right now with the system I use with AccountantsWorld, both their payroll and their accounting power write-up, one click of the mouse, every payroll entry is made. Everything from the checks to the direct deposits to the tax payments to third-party checks to garnishments to everything that is done is now automatically posted correctly in my accounting software in one click of the mouse. So component one is this additional services offered. All right? That means more money on the top line, more revenue in. Number two is timing. As I said before, to me, CES means as live as possible, where we're providing timely, accurate, reliable, relevant information to our clients. All right, one client, several clients I have, one in particular making me think of, they're a debt collector, so they deal with money. They deal with money all day, yet they don't have an accounting department because they handle the money as a work product, but all of the reconciliations, all of the recording, other than, they're recording in their own in-house system, what debt got paid, but the accounting for all that is totally outsourced to us. They can't even write a check. They don't even have a checkbook in their office. Everything is handled by us. And it is a very profitable, over $3,000 a month engagement. And the client is extremely happy because they'd be paying close to twice that amount if they had to hire an in-house person to run all of this for them. So now literally, one of my staff will go in every day in their online banking, see what's cleared, update the bank rec, making sure everything's flowing, giving the owner, some cash balance information on a daily basis, 10, 15 minutes tops. And, at the end of the month, a couple clicks of the mouse, we're reconciled. You get a couple reports out of their debt master system. We're producing them interim financials. It just runs and flows efficiently because we're running the engagement. I'm the one that's, been doing it. So moving on to the next concept, I talked about flat fee billing and how important this is. I've been doing flat fee billing for over 30 years. That's what I learned from my father-in-law originally. Go to the client and say, all right, $300, $400, $500, $600, $800, $900 a month, this is your bill. And I know it's not easy, but after all this time, you know what the client needs done. You should see by the level of the transactions how much time it's going to take us. So really just based upon the volume of transactions, you should be able to split out and create a bill for them. I do it in my head. I break it out into components. Am I doing the payroll? Yes. What exactly bookkeeping services am I providing? The accounting cleanup, tax compliance. I just break it up into segments and build their price. I always let them know it's based on volume, and we review volume 3 times a year. But if I build by time alone under this model, I'd be making a fraction of the money that I do because you're only billing for the time you spent on this client. So in essence, yeah, I'm billing them for the equivalent of 4 hours of work on a client, but we're spending less than 2, sometimes 1. So that's where you're really making, because you're billing them for the value of the work that's being delivered, not the time on which it took you to process, which means this is why our goal is to be as efficient as possible. Again, that's getting back to why I'm in the merger, why I'm now part of a much larger firm and had my company by the book absorbed into as part of the Koenig Group now, because they saw how inefficiently they were working and wanted me to bring these efficiencies into their firm. Another component, what are the advantages? Part of this is that it offers a budget, both for the client and for me. I know this is my monthly revenue because this is what we're doing. But part of this is also auto debit or charge the first of every month. Clients do this with so many things. There are insurances, other payments. Well, guess what? You're paying me first. And it's part of a budget. They like it. Clients don't like falling behind on things. But this way, it's just part of the process because, not having AR is extremely profitable because I'm not having staff sitting around all day chasing AR. It's just unfound money. It's no profit in that. So the best way of not having the AR, you put clients on auto billing. And if they refuse to do that, say, fine, your fee is 20% higher. And I've had person do that because they, just scared of everybody touching their account and fraud and those type of exposures. And he paid me 20% higher and paid me by check every month. But again, getting back to the concept, I don't take every client that rings my phone. I set the expectations of the engagement. And again, the clients like the idea of, I know how much I'm going to pay. I mean, many clients that I take on new clients, I didn't want to call you because I know my old account would bill me for that phone call. A phone call can take 5 or 10 minutes. If that's going to save me 3 hours, 2 and 3 hours of headaches down the line, I'm gladly giving a client a 5-10 minute phone call or email because it's going to keep things moving. Keeping things moving is efficient. Fixing problems down the road is not efficient. Now, I tell the clients, if you're calling me and it's requiring me to do some new work, make some projections on this or some tax topic, exactly how, say, the solar credits work, because somebody wanted to put in solar panels, and how's that deducted, how's the credit calculated, and you're only eligible for 85% of the deduction for depreciation. That was additional cost, and they knew that. But basically, general run-of-the-mill questions, it's included with it. And again, it just runs. So what tools do I use? How do I work? How do I get it done? What tools do I use? Well, as I mentioned before, this is an Accountants World. This seminar is sponsored by Accountants World, and specifically their module, Accounting Power, CAS, Client Accounting Services. I switched to Accountants World back in 2010, 2011. 2011, I made the switch because the current package that I was on, and it wasn't QuickBooks, it was another provider, big in the industry. I still used their tax software. And they were promising this brand new, all right, everything's going to be better. The client bookkeeping thing, it's going to be everything you've dreamed of. Well, after waiting like 18 months and they rolled it out, I'm like, you're kidding me. I said, that just made me, I have to change. I know there are better things out there. I'll tell you one thing. When I issue my tax organizers every year, in bold letters in the cover letter, it says, same as last year is never an acceptable response. Because people, how much was your charity? Oh, same as last year. How much is your medical? Oh, same as last year. No, that's not an acceptable response. Well, from our seat, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's the way I've always done it. You can't take that as an appropriate response to yourself anymore. There's always a better, more efficient way of doing it. Now, I'm going to tell you, you don't have to be on the cutting edge. I remember reading a survey not too long ago, which basically said less than 1% of all accountants are considered to be on the cutting edge. Something new comes out, less than 1% are jumping right on it. Up to 3% will implement it within the first year. I kind of consider myself in that 3% range, give or take. Up to 15%, once it's around a year or two and people seeing, yeah, this is really the way the industry is going, we'll implement this. The other 85%, not until their backs are against the wall and they're forced to do it, will they make a change. And that is not efficient working because there's always new things coming out. We need to be our eyes and ears open and willing to make the change. But getting into Accounting World, the tools I use are all part of the Accountants World Power Practice package, which includes an accounting power, payroll, after-the-fact payroll, a cloud cabinet, a practice management module. It's all part of this one bundle, including my buy-the-book website they build. So I went all in with them. But the Client Accounting Services has multiple built-in tools that make my life so much easier. Like, for instance, they have a wonderful tool called the Client Center. All right? The Client Center goes in, and you can look at all your clients at once, and there's columns. You can see whether or not that client you give client the access to your system, and that's a key function. I'll use the term, unlike QuickBooks, which is client-centric. QuickBooks sells to our clients. Most of the clients already got it before they even call us, and it allows the clients to set everything up. Oh, yeah, here's the standard accounts for a realtor. Here's standard accounts for a retail. And again, that's what leads to all these different chart of accounts that we're having. So in our system, I set it up for the client. I've established a chart of accounts. I grant them access and only to the parts they want. So I could see here who has access, but it lets me know their cash balances, receivables, payables, if they have any money in suspense that's unposted, what year and what period are they in, and when was the last time the client logged in. So it's a very powerful tool about, you can see in the client snapshot. There's another for client notifications where I can go in and utilizing the tools that are available that I'm going to shortly get into, it's telling me how many checks does this client have to be printed that are waiting. Are they registered for bank feeds? How many unmapped accounts are there? When was the last import date? How many invoices are pending? All of these options are, again, all in one client notification snapshot. But getting into the meat and potatoes of it allows me collaboration with the clients. When I sit and talk with a client the first time, I listen to exactly how they're doing things, what are they doing, but then I get down to the meat and potatoes of, all right, I'm listening to your pains. I'm hearing what's wrong. And then I say, listen, I can help. And I develop the program, and I decide exactly how much, if anything, what the client is going to do. When do I take over? When do I take the handoff? And then run to the finish line, run to the goal line, and which is tax, the ultimate tax return. But I'm setting up the permissions they're allowed. That's one of the powers of the system. The other is if we're performing all this outsourced services, a fairly new system they have is what's called digital checks, a bill payment process where it's a full-length process that you can use bits and pieces of it or the whole process. For example, if you're doing client bill paying, the client can take a snapshot of the invoice from their smartphone, any device. The invoice is saved right into Accounting Power. When my staff or me, I log in, it shows that their invoice is pending, waiting to be uploaded. We upload them in a click of a mouse. Depending on what the engagement says, some clients we actually send, once a week, send them a list. These are bills ready to pay. What do you approve? And others, just approve us to pay it automatically. But there's a whole system established where you can send clients a list and they approve the bills to be paid. But that moves on to digital checks. Instead of the old-fashioned, all right, here's a paper check and it prints the client's signature on it. Sure, that's nice. Digital checks work through an email system. The vendor gets an email and saying, here, you can print out this email, which prints out a digital check that they can then take to a bank and deposit it. Or if they enter in the banking information, it turns into a direct deposit ACH right to them. Again, streamlining efficiency. And that's if you're engaged in a full outsource bill pay, all-encompassing service. You're reducing our time because it's all done electronically. Think in tax preparing, how much extra time it is to generate an entire paper copy with deliverables versus sending somebody an electronic copy through a portal or through secure email using an e-signature. The time is a fraction of the amount of time when we're doing things in electronic formats. The next feature, banking credit card feeds. Let's face it, a lot of the smaller clients, and I'll use the term the mom and pop shops, they will still just write their bills paying checks. Some are more apt, and this is where I see a change in our industry, using the term millennials. I just picked up a new dental client, and this dental client, he's like, no, I'm fine paying my bills. I go on my online banking, click, 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 and pay. But that does nothing for us where we need to capture that data, compile it, and make sure it's all posted and reconciled correctly. Banking credit card feeds is a live direct feed that you link to the client's bank accounts, to their credit card accounts, that provides the data updated right into our systems so that when the month end comes, the data is there. If they're still doing a handwritten checks, the system works beautifully because it actually brings over images of the checks. You don't have to go in and find it in the list and click on it. You basically just click on View Image. A new pop-up window shows up, and there's the image of the check. Oh, okay, that's the Verizon. That's their telephone. Two clicks on the keyboard, it's posted correctly. So the tools that are available in AccountantsWorld are extremely powerful that allows me to operate an efficient CAS practice. basically defining exactly what I'm going to do for the client, and this allows me to do it. I talked before about payroll, my belief of how important it is for you to do payroll because it increases creates a profit center, creates great efficiencies. And we talked before, it directly imports everything into accounting power. But processing, generally, we're creating almost like a franchise. This is how we do it. It's a playbook. Now, again, each customer, we can slightly customize for each. For instance, like I said with bill pay, some clients want me to send them a list saying, here's all the open bills, here's your available cash, what do you want me to pay? Others, it's, no, when I send you the bill, it's approved for payment. So there's always a slight modification. It's just like processing payroll. Some clients fax us in a worksheet. Other clients we give online access, and they log into the system, enter the hours, and approve the payroll themselves. So you're basically keeping the same steps, but you're defining the interaction. But in general, it's basically doing the exact same thing. And as I said, process the work no less than monthly. All right? And use the tools available that is eliminating manual data entry. Manual data entry, is leads to errors and is very, very time consuming. So you definitely do not want to use every tool available to that. So AccountantsWorld provides me these tools to run this practice and run it very efficiently because I'm doing more work electronically. I'm not, again, taking that old model where, this is how we did it by hand manually, so now let's just do the same thing in a computer system. You're embracing the processes of what the computer system allows you to do. So how do I sell it? And I talked briefly about this before. First is educating the client. There is a better way. All right? And then what I mean by a better way is people have preconceived ideas of, well, this is how we're supposed to do it. No. There's a better way. And you're telling them how you're going to fix their pains and fix their issues and fix their problems by the program you're bringing to them. And basically, you're creating and building a relationship with them where you are no longer just a vendor. You are becoming a strategic business partner to that client because that client got into business because they have a talent and a God-given ability, something to be able to make money. That doesn't mean they know how to run the back office. Apples and oranges. And that's where we come in. Well, and again, getting back to AccountantsWorld, I don't consider AccountantsWorld just to be my software vendor. I consider them my strategic business partner. Why? Because I cannot do and provide my clients the level of services I do without their product. And they're always open to my suggestions saying, hey, listen, this is great, but it would be better if. So that's why I consider them. So just as I approach my own vendor relationship with AccountantsWorld is how I'm selling it to my clients, building that relationship. But again, like I said, there's these new trends coming we have to be aware for where some of the things like the digital checks we may not use because clients are getting apt to doing their online banking themselves. So we have the other tools of the client capture. Economics. As I gave you the example before, I must have thought ahead of myself when I gave you the example of the fitness center. Outsourcing, and I don't like using this cliche, one-stop shop, costs far less than dealing with multiple vendors. And that's what clients want and need to see. That, listen, I don't care what you're paying now. We can figure out what they're paying, and some will be very open and tell you without you asking, but this is what I'm going to charge. And they're going to see the benefit immediately that you're costing, two-thirds, half of what they are currently paying under this old model and under a model that's giving them headaches. That's not efficient. So that is the ability to sell the clients. And I know payrolls are very competitive out there. I mean, my clients are hit all the time. They can't walk into their bank to make a deposit without them saying, oh, can we process your payroll for you? Or, one of the major companies' reps walking in and trying to get them to sell payroll. Well, I simply explain it like this. If you have someone else process your payroll, it's like you're paying twice for it. What do you mean? Well, if you're paying ADP, now your volume is increasing, that I have to charge you more to incorporate that into your books and records. If you pay me to process your payroll, I don't consider that a part of the volume that I'm charging for because the click of the mouse, there's integration. So if you don't let us do it, you're basically paying twice. That's basically what I, sell it to them under that. But as I said, you're telling them how are you going to eliminate their headaches and pain, whether it's simply an e-checkbook. Again, the beauty of this system is we're setting it up, and we're giving them the permissions of exactly what they're allowed to do and what they're allowed to see. That's another benefit of this system is that, if they're running a major system where they have 9 menus across the top with 12 different drop-downs under each, they get extremely confused exactly what they're looking at. This will streamline what they see to just what their permissions are. Most clients are just looking for an electronic checkbook, to be honest with you. They're not looking for an elaborate bookkeeping or accounting system. They want to be able to track their bank balance and pay bills. And we can provide this for them. But basically, I'm providing them a peace of mind. That is what you're selling them. And the ability to handle it for them. That's the key. They know it's handled. Now, by all of these operating efficiencies, another profit centers, now you can elevate to outsourced CFO services, which is now you have not just simple tax planning, but when you're giving the client guidance, where you're using built-in key point indicators and ratios that are built into the AccountantsWorld system to generate a report for the client. Say, listen, your industry average, your available cash is usually this ratio, and this is where your ratio is. So you can look at all the standardized ratios and how your client performs against them. But like I said, you're not pitching it as a change. You're selling it as a solution. And you have to tell them, listen, it's always easy. One of the hardest things in selling, in my opinion, is getting the urgency of now. I mean, that's one good thing about our business in tax season. Tax season comes around every year. So 1040 clients, the urgency is built in. They know the April 15th deadline. But for clients making a change of how they do their bookkeeping, a lot of it is the fear of the unknown. But you got to tell them, listen, if your car tire is a leak and it keeps leaking air, and every week you got to go put air in it, stop filling it with air. Get the damn tire fixed. And that's what it's time to fix the tire. And stop just maintaining it and keeping it going along. But bottom line is economics is a lot cheaper doing it in a one-stop shop because you're utilizing the tools internally, all this collaboration that is allowing you to process that same work but a much, much quicker and cheaper in efficiency. So in my summary, ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember increasing your company profit not only comes from generating more revenue, which is bringing on new clients and giving additional services to those clients, but more so from increased operating efficiencies. All right, your bottom line increases by both an increase in revenue, decrease of expenditures. With that, remember, if you have a client that you're spending $500 a month to bring in $400 because that's how much time and aggravation they give you, either A, raise the prices. If they stay, great, you're getting paid for your work. If they don't, you know what? You just freed up your time to be much better service to better paying clients that appreciate you. All right, but change is difficult. We talked about this. Change can and does hurt. It's very painful, but change in our industry is inevitable. We cannot fight it. We have to embrace it. We need to plan for it. The old adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I know, again, I'm using these silly terms, but because they're true. But if we plan to mitigate and minimize the pain of change by planning for it and implementing it on our terms, all right, not when it's forced upon you, not when you're in that 85% I talked about. I mean, just thinking back, mandatory e-filing, what was that, 2005, 2006? My current partner back then, 10 years before the merger, calls me and says, Jim, this new e-filing mandate, what are you doing about it? Well, what do you mean I'm doing? I've been e-filing all my returns for the last 2 years. He fell off his chair because he's part of that 85%. That 85% that just doesn't, waiting for it to be forced upon you. Same thing right now, just as, again, it's a little off topic, proof of identity for tax returns. Many states are requiring DL information. Not all. New York is one of them. And I'm not sure about Maryland. I think Maryland does also, but like New Jersey right now, it's still an optional state, and I'm telling everybody, what's optional today will be mandatory tomorrow. Start implementing a system of capturing the data now before it's forced upon us. So that is basically, Bill, all I have to say for today. Stop the insanity, take control back of your accounting practice, and live the lives you want to live.
That's a great note to end on, Jim. I love your idea of that. Same as last year just doesn't cut it anymore. There's always a better way, a more efficient way, and I think that goes for a lot of new technology too, stuff that is just starting to become a little bit more mainstream that we can look at as. I'm thinking of things like artificial intelligence and cognitive computing. I think they have the potential to automate a lot of the inefficient, time-consuming work that we do, which will free us up to provide even more value-added services down the line. So it's going to be exciting to see where that kind of stuff goes too.
I absolutely agree. Bitcoin, the shared data that's going to be out there in the cloud, or BitChain data, I apologize, is going to be out in the cloud where it's going to be much easier capturable. So it's us then, changing the services to be able to capture that data and, again, provide those better value-added services back to our clients.
And for anyone listening, if you have any questions, now would be the time to go ahead and ask them in the Zoom meeting file there. While we're waiting to see if any questions come in, Jim, I have a quick question. When you were talking about flat fee billing, I was wondering what kind of feedback did you get from your clients when it comes to that? Was there any pushback at all from folks who were just used to being billed by the hour and were a little reluctant to go in a new direction there?
Well, it wasn't. I guess the question's a little difficult because if you've been doing it one way and now you're implementing a whole change to everybody, this is how I learned, almost like right from my inception. But coming in when I talk to new clients and sharing that with them, I explained to them that the fee is based, I'm giving you what I'm considering a rock bottom cost-effective fee, and this is one of the components of it. And that the fee would be higher if I have to, put in the manual processes of billing, collection, and so forth. So, when I'm telling them the pitch and the price that I'm offering, I'm telling them right up front it's contingent upon this. I said, you're allowing me to pay your sales tax. You're allowing me to pay your payroll taxes out of your account. My fee is exactly the same. If you hire ADP or Paychecks, they're doing the exact same thing every time they have a payroll run. So it's not as hard anymore. And, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, it was more difficult. I know people are worried about fraud and theft of identity. However, I can say in all of my years, knock on wood, I've not had one instance of that regarding my own clients and, our ability to access their accounts and, pay bills due to the security, high levels of security in the systems that are out there, the firewalls that we implement internally. But yes, if you've been billing and you sell it to them that, listen, on average, you can go back to a client and say, listen, look at your bill over the last 3 years. This is now going to be your flat fee bill. Even if you go in and it cuts it down by $100 to $200, but if you're doing it, you think of how much if you're not going to have to worry about cash flow and chasing receivables. That's worth it as well. They're not going to know about your time-saving efficiencies. That's the key to this, is that, you used to process the work in 4 hours. If you implement the right technology, you can now process it in 2. You're getting a raise. So you can cut, that your proposed fee a little.
We do have one question that came in from one of the participants there asking, what was the key point that helped you decide which technology to use?
Well, after my current provider rolled out the horrible platform that it did, and I said there's got to be a better answer out there. What I did first was I sat down with the proverbial yellow legal pad and wrote down the features and benefits, let's use that sales term, of what I would consider to be my optimum software package. This is what I believed, as been doing this work for so many years. These are the functionalities. These are the things that I believed the system needed to provide. I then went to, back then in 2010, I think it was called the CPA Tech Advisor, which today is now known as the CPA Practice Advisor, and look there for guidance, because they're the ones that are always giving the reviews and ratings of the packages that are and the solutions that are out there, software solutions. And that's where I first found AccountantsWorld. And it's funny. I said, wow, I've seen the ads there every month, and because they advertise heavily, but I never paid attention because I wasn't open to change. Now, when I started investigating packages and doing my research on them, I found that AccountantsWorld hit like 95% of the things I had on my list right out of the box. And that's what pushed me to move to AccountantsWorld. And I primarily went there for the write-up and the client bookkeeping solution, to say, providing the answer for how to best collaborate with clients. And I thought, well, payroll is payroll. Well, little did I know how much I would even gain more on the efficiency, because I said for the integration, I'm going to move payroll over as well. And then that was even more of a home run, because I went from taking a lot of time processing payroll down to minutes. So that's how I did it. I really determined what was important to me. What did I want to accomplish? And then I went out into the market looking at each package.
Fantastic. Well, I guess that's a wrap, Jim. Listen, great stuff. There's a lot there to process, and I just want to thank you so much for being here and for your insights today. So thank you very much.
Bill, you're very, very welcome, and thank you for having me.